1987, following his critically acclaimed role in Less Than Zero, Robert Downey Jr. was the toast of Hollywood. But behind the scenes, his drug use was spiralling, leaving him at odds with longtime sweetheart Sarah Jessica Parker.
He was dating Sarah Jessica Parker, and she left him because she just couldn't deal with him anymore.
Shortly after his split with Sarah Jessica, Robert met Deborah Faulkner. After a whirlwind 42-day courtship, they married.
Good evening.
Robert was also cashing in on his stardom, but not necessarily picking the best films.
After Less Than Zero, Robert Downey Jr. appeared in several high-profile movies, Air America, Soap Dish. Some of them did well, some of them did not. Very few of them sort of remember today as particularly good movies.
In the late 80s, he is taking roles and he's distracted by other things in his life, and it's a tragedy.
Few would have believed at that point that Downey was on the verge of the part of a lifetime. In 1991, Sir Richard Attenborough was casting his biopic of Charlie Chaplin. Hollywood A-listers Robin Williams, Billy Crystal and Dustin Hoffman read for the lead, but to the surprise of Hollywood, Attenborough wanted Robert.
People know what Charlie Chaplin looks like, the movements of Charlie Chaplin. It's a really tough role for any actor to conquer. And the studio did not want to go with Robert Downey Jr.
I mean, Robert Downey Jr. at that point was really known for being on Saturday Night Live and some 80s teen movies. He wasn't the kind of person you'd think would be headlining a Richard Attenborough epic. I mean, he wasn't a British actor, he wasn't a theatrically trained actor, he was a complete shot in the dark in terms of casting.
The studio ended up backing out of the film, which left Attenborough to go and raise his financing himself. And it took 10 months for him to do it. And while he was working on that, Robert had all this free time. And he read everything he could about Chaplin. And he even learned how to play tennis left-handed, how to play the violin left-handed. He threw himself into this role, and it really says a lot about his dedication to his job as an actor.
Robert would later say that he cleaned up his act for Chaplin. Downey delivered a stunning performance in the role, earning himself an Oscar nomination for Best Actor.
I don't know what to think. It's my first time.
I think it was really to Richard Attenborough's credit to stick with Robert Downey Jr. There's this scene in Chaplin in the beginning of the movie, and he's just like falling down and doing all these acrobatic, slapstick kind of comedy things, and he just nails it.
Oh, no, really, sir, this is too much. Kindly remember, sir, this is a place of entertainment.
Chaplin really showed that when handed those roles where he's required to be, someone completely different, then he can do it with aplomb.
The 1992 Best Actor Oscar ended up going to Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman, but Robert's nomination got him noticed by some of the best directors, including Robert Altman. Altman cast him in his 1993 Shortcuts.
Actors love to work with Robert Altman. If you say to Robert Altman, I have an idea for this character, he'll talk to you about it. It's a collaborative process. He lets you go where you want to go with it. And for somebody like Robert Downey Jr., that's probably perfect.
If you give him free rein, this is the key, and this is actually a message to every director who will ever direct him. Shut up, back off, and enjoy what he gives you. I don't know any other actor where it's as clear-cut. Let him show you what he wants to show you, and don't impose anything on him unless he's open to it and asks for it.
Robert took his free rein to nearly manic levels for his next role in Oliver Stone's film Natural Born Killers.
I actually love Robert Downey Jr. in Natural Born Killers. In many ways, while it's a morally dubious film, I think one would have to say, he's terrific in it.
He plays this crazy TV tabloid-style host of a show, and I mean that film, by all accounts, was an unhinged experience. Robert Downey Jr. completely committed to that role, completely committed to that film.
Life is a hunt. I've seen it. I was there when the
Hit the fan at Grenada. I saw it all go down at Grenada.
And you could say it's an over-the-top performance, but if you're going to give an over-the-top performance, then I think Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers is the place to do it.
By this time, it was clear that Downey had returned to drugs, and not even his first child could change things. In September of 1993, his wife Deborah gave birth to a son, Indio. But Downey fell further into darkness and soon started using heroin.
Robert Downey Jr. has said that it's around the time of his performance in Home for the Holidays, which was directed by Jodie Foster, that he started using heroin and also using drugs on set.
He's not responding at all. Mom, I have got the best trendy booze for you. It's apple cinnamon liqueur. We're pushing it all over the Northeast this year. It's a huge hit, but you get it first because you are a Belle Larson trendsetter. Spin, Mommy. Spin, Mommy.
And Jodie Foster knew what was going on, and she actually staged a sort of mini intervention, and she went up to him and said, like, I know what you're doing, and you know I know what you're doing. He basically just blew her off.
She wasn't upset with the dailies. She got the work, she got the performance, but she was probably very upset about, well, what's happening with him now? Where's Robert going to go? This is getting serious.